Yo, so let's talk about marriage and semen retention. I had someone comment on my YouTube. Um, since I do semen retention as a married individual, as a married man, he asked me about having sexual intercourse solely for the purpose of procreation, and then minimizing any kind of intercourse for anything else. So just focusing on like having kids. And then he asked about doing things like tantric sex, where you obviously don't per se release, but you do the act, right? So I would say that when you're on this journey of semen retention, right, it's easy to get caught up in absolutes, and it's easy to get caught up in black and white. So it's either like, release your semen for procreation and having kids, or don't do it at all, right? And don't release at all. But as you are in a relationship, in a marriage, as a man with a female, generally there's going to be times when you are going to have these instances where you are just going to release for the sake of, let's say, pleasure, or for the sake of, you doing the thing, and not per se for the sake of having a child, right? There's going to be those cases. And ultimately, it's okay. Because, as I said, people get caught up in, it's either this or that, It's either you do this and then you never do that. But the thing is, when you get so caught up into it, so attached to the particular thing of semen retention in this case, you actually go backwards. It's kind of like a weird paradox. There's paradoxes in everything, right? This life itself is a divine paradox. Things that actually make sense don't make sense, and that which doesn't make sense actually makes sense. But when you go either end to an extreme, it basically comes back around to its opposite, right? Because it's interconnected. These things are interconnected metaphysically. So when we're talking about semen retention and doing these things, now you're so attached to that. No, I can only release my seed. I can only release my life force when I'm having a child or when I'm procreating, which is true, because you're going to do those in those scenarios. But there's going to be times that you are going to release for the sake of pleasure. And don't get too caught up in this thing about, no, it can only be like this, because it's going to make you go crazy, because you're going to come back around and you're going to be the opposite, where you're going to be constantly doing it because you realize that it actually, what does it matter, right? So it's between mattering a lot and not mattering at all, these two opposites. When it comes to the releasing part, when you're no longer retaining your seed, your life force, your semen, right? So what I would say in that case is that you can, especially when you, like myself, when you're a married man, or you a person that's been in a long-term relationship with a female, or you are in a serious committed relationship with a female, and you sleep together and you release, but you don't have per se the goal of becoming a father, that's okay. This is all okay. I think what I'm going to end it off on is that we shouldn't get too attached to these particular scenarios that we lose ourselves, because over attachment keeps you, essentially, metaphorically and literally, keeps you more dense. So you're actually inverting any of the power that you are reawakening to. The powers they talk about, the semen retention benefits. I've talked about it on this channel, where I talk about psychic abilities, which are actually not psychic, it's just normal abilities. When you come back to that power, what you will do is then invert your natural state. And then you are then you are busy, you know, exploring territories where you are not actually familiar with what's going on, because you think you know, because you think that the over attachment is the answer, not knowing that it's over attachment. And it's easy to identify in yourself, not in others, but in yourself. When am I being over attached to something? When am I being so attached to something that becomes who I think I am? Like, it becomes an identity to be, oh, okay, I'm someone that does semen retention. I never release, and that becomes your whole life. So you get so caught up, and then you become so dense, and those powers, aka your natural state, your natural vibration, your natural frequency, your natural way of expressing life, where you can foresee things, you can have discernment, where you can have an open heart, and you can feel the literal vibration of love and peace and serenity and bliss and joy, where you are in these higher frequencies, these higher this higher consciousness, which is your natural state. It's not a holier than thou state. It's not a unreachable state. It's not, oh, you must meditate for 10 hours type of thing. No, it's right here, right now within you. So when you become so dense and so attached, all those things that you can experience, that you naturally actually do experience, they all don't matter anymore, because you are inverting your power. You are inverting your natural high vibration, your natural high frequency. So you actually don't experience any of those things because it's such an over-attachment. It's almost like having an obsession, but an obsession to a point where it actually brings you down instead of raises you up. So that's kind of my answer to that. My thoughts on those scenarios, and the combination is how I see it as a married man who does semen retention. So that's all for today's video. Anyways, peace out. Have a good one. The energy's still high. I'm just answering this question in this video, hence why I'm a bit more direct, a bit more focused, a bit more steady, instead of, bursting with energy. But the energy is still high, and we continue this journey. Anyways, any questions, let me know down below. And thank you to that awesome comment from Mr. Mike. Anyway, peace out.